Hey everyone, how is it going? Welcome to day 22, and today we'll be learning React and we'll be finishing off the Spotify clone. So, are you guys excited for this session? A lot of you have been waiting for React, and I hope the wait has been worth it. Um, you can let me know in the comments how have you been doing with the Spotify clone and what do you guys think? Should we wrap up the React part first and then move on to the clone, or should we complete the clone first and then move on to the React session? You can let me know in the comments. In the meantime, I'll just set things up. All right, so okay, fine. We'll wrap up first and then we'll move on to the clone. All right. Just give me a second. I had a bit of a technical issue today at my end and just wasn't able to set up things like the way I usually am setting up before the session. So, all right. Okay. Let's get started with today's session. So we were having issues with the the play and pause functionality. This is where we had left it off yesterday, right? On selecting a song, it was selecting it, but it wasn't actually, these two buttons were not in sync. So let's work on that functionality. So we are inside dashboard.js, and what we will do is so we had written quite a lot of code around the you know the on play track. So let's get rid of this code. What we will do is we will check our logic and update the, sync the buttons on the events which are related to play and pause coming from the audio element. And the other thing that we will do to check whether the same track is being played or a different track is being played, instead of bothering with all of this, play track ID and all of those things, we'll check from the audio element itself. If the audio element's source URL and the preview URL, both of them are same, that means the same song is being played. Okay, played and paused. So what we'll do is let's update this condition. So we will say um, audio dot src if it's equal to the preview URL. In that case, we want to, focus on this functionality. Let's get rid of this code. Okay, we'll take care of this in a different function. And what we will do is let's rename this function. Let's just call this as play track. Okay, and we'll create a new function called you know play song. Okay, or rather let's call this as toggle play. And what we will do here is we'll move this logic inside this function, and we will check if the audio has a source. In that case, we will check for these, okay, whether the audio is paused. If the audio is paused, we play it. Otherwise, we, pause it. And instead of having this, we will call toggle play. Okay. Then let's get rid of this code, and this was the else part, right? We were setting all of this. This is no longer needed. And let's take care of all of these things as well. Let's move the code, um, move all of these controls which we have. Let's get rid of this, and let's move these inside the you know inside the DOM content loaded event, because that's where we'll be needing most of these. So let's move them here. Okay, and let's refactor the code for this a bit, so we don't need this part anymore. um, and let's move all of this, the event listener related code, let's move this uh, inside the DOM content loaded part. Okay, play button, clear interval. Let's go with this step by step. All right, so let's get rid of this, and let's take the total song duration from here. And since we are only using it inside this function, let's move this here. Okay, and let's get rid of this. We will be doing all of this when we are listening to the play and pause events on the audio element. Okay, so we don't need this signal controller and all of this code as well. All right, we will just say audio on audio metadata loaded. This thing should happen. Then let's get back to the play track function, and here let's take all of this code which was responsible for you know taking care of the progress. Let's move that inside the DOM content loaded as well. And rather, let's do this. We'll listen to the audio now. So we'll add the event listener. When a song starts playing, okay, the play event is triggered, and we'll handle the functionality when that happens. We'll do certain things over here. So we want to check when when the play event is happening, that is when we want to check the progress for this and fill it up. And similarly, like we have the play event, let's add the event listener for pause. Okay. And in that case, we just want to clear the progress interval. We want to check if the progress interval is there. We want to clear that. Okay. Because this monitors every second how much of an audio is being played, right? And and then it updates the text, the start time and end time for the audio, and also updates the progress for that. Okay, so let's do all of this while the audio is playing, and if it is pausing, then we no longer want to perform this operation. All right, and as far as the icons go, let's modify those as well. So when we are loading the playlist tracks, over here we are creating the buttons, right? So instead of using these icons, let's do one thing. Let's make use of the material UI icon. So we will say let's search for that material. Yeah, material symbols outlined. Let's make use of this class. Let's add this to this. Okay, and by default we will have the text content as play arrow, like this. All right, so this is coming from the material UI library now. Sorry, this one. Hang on a sec. Material symbols outline play arrow. Okay, yeah, it needs to be underscore actually. All right, so this icon is coming from there. And where we were updating the icons, let's work on that functionality as well. Now instead of using this when we are in the play mode, instead of having the pause, we will say we'll just pass pause over here. And for the update icons for pause mode, here we will once again say play underscore arrow, like this. All right, and what we want to do is so we were calling this from where? So let's, instead of calling this, what we will do is we will just say toggle play. Okay, this will play the song and pause the current song, right? And we have these play and pause events. So let's take care of those over here. So what we want to do is when the play event happens, okay, we want to get the which is the song which is being played currently. All right, and so what we will do here is we will basically call that function update icons for play mode. All right, and this is expecting an ID. So in order to get the ID, what we will do is the moment we are setting the audio source, right, which is inside the play track function. So here we are setting the audio, right? And what we will do here is we will get the element const audio control. So document dot query selector will keep a reference of which song is being played currently as a attribute on this element. Okay, so this is what we will do. We will let's copy this id and let's get that element. Mhm. Audio control, let's copy this, let's paste it. Hang on a second. All right, and what we will do is we will say that audio control dot set attribute, and we'll set the data track id, and we'll set the value as the id of the song that is being played currently, right? This is what we'll do. And when we are inside the play event for the song, okay, over here we will first get the selected track id, and we'll get that from the audio control. So let's do one thing, let's keep a reference of the audio control over here as well. Document dot query selector. Okay, and we have the audio control, and we want to get the attribute which is data hyphen track hyphen id. All right, and afterwards what we want to do is, after we getting the attribute, hang on a sec. All right, yeah, so once we have the attribute, we want to get all of the we want to pass this selected id over here, selected track id. All right, and here what we want to do is we have this id, and we are getting the play button we want to get the reference to the play button, so we'll say const play button equals document dot query selector, and it's the button which has the id play. And then this part remains the same, and here let's make a slight change over here. We are gonna put a hyphen over here, and let's correct that uh, over here as well while we are generating the play buttons, and here also. And what we want to do here is that we have set the text content to pause. Let's get rid of this, and we want to check over here that if you know we have the play button from tracks. The reason why we are doing this is because later on, when we go back to the dashboard, this playlist will not be available, and we would still want to navigate between uh, different songs. And when this function will get called in that scenario, we don't want to basically these buttons will not be available. All right. And similarly, let's update this as well. So we'll need the play button over here also. Okay. And the text content will be play circle for the main thing. And here we'll set it back to the play audio, and we'll have the same check as we have for uh, the function above. Now let's check if it is working properly. So what we want to do is when we have the play, when we're listening to the play event, we're getting the track ID and we are updating the icons over here. And for the pause functionality, we want to clear the interval and we want to get the selected track ID as well. Okay, and instead of calling the update icons for play mode, we'll call it with the pause mode, and we'll check if the selected track ID uh, and will is available, and we'll pass it over here, and then this function will get called. Let's try this out. I'm playing a song. So you can see that it started playing the song. I clicked on this button, it paused it. When I click on this again, it's pausing it. So both of these buttons are now in sync. Okay. So we have, successfully taken care of that part. Now, next, what we want to do is if you take a look at the Spotify website, when we are playing a song, so for example, some song from here, whatever song that you're playing, it has this, green class on it. The song which is being played, it has this green color on it, right? So let's implement this functionality as well. Okay. So what we will do over here is when the song starts to play, we want to get the tracks. So document dot query selector, we want to get the parent element where all the the container for all the tracks, the parent for all of this. And then what we want to do is we want to find out the currently playing track. Okay. So what we will do is when we are you know playing any particular track, we will add the playing class to it. Okay. So this is what we want to do over here, that let's get the playing track. We'll try and find the track which has, let's get back to this in just a bit. Let's find the selected track first. Okay, so we'll check if the tracks is there, and then inside this we will try to query uh, using the ID and we will pass the id value as the value that we are getting from selected track id. Okay, missing a closing curly bracket. So using this, we will identify which is the track which is currently being played, right? Uh, because for that, I mean that particular, uh, you know, because the ID will be, that is the song which is being played, and its ID is available over here. So we are getting that particular track, and what we will do is, once we have that track, right? So selected track, and we will say its class list, we want to add the class playing to it, okay, to identify this is the one which is being played. All right, and let's define the style for that. So what we will do is we'll say track, which is playing, and within that what we want to do is, for the track number, okay, as well as the, you know, the track which is playing, and let's give a class to the, for the song title as well. So let's go to the, load playlist, playlist tracks function, and then, where we have the song title, right, which is, basically this element, okay, and this is the name of the artist. Let's give it a class song title, okay, and we'll target this class because if you notice over here, the song title as well as the track number, both of them have that green color. So that is what we are trying to do over here. So track playing, and then the song title class, right? What we want to do is we want to give it a color, and we'll pick the color from the theme, and we'll say colors dot green, okay. So this is defined in the tailwind config, if you guys remember, this green color. So we are picking up the green color which is coming from the theme, okay, theme section of the tailwind config. All right, so let's try out this functionality. So you can see that this is the song which is being played, okay, and right now the, for example, I click on this, right, we need to get rid of this, you know, the previous song which had that class. So let's do that now. Okay, and here what we will do is, let's get the track which is currently being played, okay. So tracks, we will check, we will search within that, and we will try and find the, you know, section which has the playing class on it, okay. This is the song which was already being played, and here what we will do is we'll check if the playing track dot id equals the selected track, you know, the track which we have selected. If both of the ids are, you know, they're not the same, In that case, what we will do is we'll say playing track dot class list dot remove. We will remove the playing class. Okay. And another thing that we want to do is, when a track is being played, right? At the rate play. Wait, I'm in the wrong file now. Command Shift P at the rate play track. So this is receiving an event object, right? What we want to do is we will check if event question mark dot stop propagation. So we are using optional chaining. In that case, we will stop the propagation. We're doing this because uh, if you take a look at this, when I'm clicking on the play button for the next song, right? So for example, this one, uh, it doesn't. So suppose this one was highlighted, right? The one which is being played, that it's not necessary for that to be highlighted, okay, in this gray color. So you can click anywhere, the this selection remains, but the song changes. So that is what we have to do. That is why we added that event.stop propagation. So when we are clicking on this, the selection happens, but when we click on this, the song starts playing, uh, but the selection remains on that particular song. Okay. All right. Okay, I made a mistake over here. So this needs to be playing track. All right. Let's see if it's working now. So you can see that, the song which is being played right now, it has that, green color for that as well. And this is the one which is being highlighted when I click on any other element. Okay. You can see that only that song starts playing, but the selection remains where it was. Okay. So this functionality is, we are done with that as well. And the next thing that we want to work on is the next and previous functionality. So let's start working on that. So let's add buttons for that. So const next equals document dot query selector. We want to get the element which has the id next. Okay. Similar to this, we want to get the element which has the id previous. When that happens, we want to basically perform certain actions. Okay. So next dot add event listener. When we click on the next button, we want to do something. And similarly, when we click on the previous button, we want to do something. So we will say, um, we'll create new functions over here. Const, you know, play next track equals something, and const play previous track. We want to do something when that happens. Let's link all of this. Okay, so play next track, and here we want to say play previous track. Okay, now to keep keep a check of all these songs which have been played, the song which is currently being played, right? So let's work on that functionality now. Okay, so we want to find the song which is currently being played. In order to do that, what we will do is we do not have access to all of the tracks over here, right? They have been, uh, the data was coming from the API, and then we just binded that information to these elements. So what we will do is we'll modify the load playlist tracks functionality, and we'll store that information in the local storage. Okay, so let's go to that function, load uh, tracks, uh, load playlist tracks, right? And what we want to do over here is we'll create a variable const loaded tracks, and we'll give it an empty array. And another thing that we want to do is we want to filter the items which have a preview URL. There are some songs which do not have a preview URL, so we only want to show songs which have a preview URL. Okay, so we will say item and item dot track dot preview URL. Okay, we want to filter those items which have a preview URL. All right, and here what we will do is so once we are inside the for loop, we will say loaded tracks dot push. Okay, we'll push all of these in this array, and this array we will save inside the uh, local storage. All right, so here what we will do is we will push the id, we'll push the artists, the names of the artists, we'll push the name of the song, its album, and the duration, as well as the preview URL and the image. Okay, so these are the things that we want to persist in the local storage. And once this part has been done, we will say let's create a utility function over here inside common. Okay, so export const set items in local storage. Will This will accept a key and a value. Okay, and we will say local storage dot set item key, and the value we want to, since it's an object, we will say json dot stringify, and we will stringify the value and save it in the local storage. Similarly, we'll create a function get item from local storage. Okay, and here what we will do is we will pass this the key, and this will return the value from local storage. So we'll say json dot parse and local storage dot get item, and we will pass the key that we have over here. Okay, all right, and let's go back to the dashboard. So here we will say set item in local storage, let's create a key over here, export const loaded tracks, and here we will say we'll pass the key which is loaded tracks, right? And the value would be the loaded tracks array which we have, right? So this is how we are. Let's save this and let's save this, and let's check if the playlist songs are being loaded. So you can see that we have this information available in the local storage now, that the loaded tracks are available in the local storage. Then what we want to do is we want to use this functionality to navigate between one track and the next. So let's work on that. Not now. Let's go to the dashboard and let's try and find the function play next track, right? Before we do that, let's try and find the current track. So let's create a function const find current track. Okay, and what this function will do is we'll go to the audio control, which keeps a track of the currently playing song, right? So we'll say document dot query selector, get the audio control, and we want to find the track ID, which is coming from audio control dot get attribute data track ID, and we want to check if the track ID is available. We want to get the loaded tracks from the local storage. So we'll say get item from local storage, and the key is loaded track. Oops, loaded tracks. Okay, so this is what we are getting. Then what we want to do is we want to find the this particular ID in this array, right? So const current track index equals loaded tracks dot, if it's there, find index, and we want to find the track where the track ID equals the track ID that we are getting from the audio control. All right, and we will return this. We will say current track index, and the tracks are the loaded track. So we are returning the index where the index of the current track, and we are returning the entire list of tracks. And if nothing is there, we will return null. Okay, now let's make use of this functionality to complete the play previous and play next. So we'll get the current track index and the tracks, and we'll set those to null, and we'll set the default value for this to -1, and we will call the function find current track, right? Okay, all right. Then what we want to do is we want to check if the current track index is greater than -1 and the current track index. I mean, we are checking whether it's possible to go ahead or not. Whether if we are on the the last song, then it should not be possible to proceed on to the next one, right? Because there is no next. So over here we will check whether the current track index is less than the all the tracks that we have with us. Okay, we will get the length of all the tracks which are there, and we will subtract one from it. So we cannot go to the next track if we're already on the last track, right? So it needs to be the we have this condition for that purpose. Okay, and if this condition is true, all right, we will say um, const we will say over here play track. We'll pass the event argument as null, and we will say that the track that we want to play is tracks with the current track index, and we'll add one to it. So this should play the next song. And let's copy this and take a look at this functionality as well. So the same thing happens over here, but instead of checking, you know, we want to ensure that when we are on the 0th index, then it should not be possible to, go to the previous song. So we want to ensure that the current track index is greater than 0. That means a value 1 or 1 and above. All right, the next item and the items ahead. If that is the case, we will reduce the current track index by 1 and pick that track and call the play track function. Okay, now let's try this functionality out. So we are playing this song. You can see this is highlighted. Let's click on next. So you can see it selected the next song. Now let's click on previous. It's going all the way. I'm clicking previous again. So the navigation is happening, right? Okay. So when we click on next, it's going to the next song. When we click on previous, it's going to the previous one. All right. So the navigation functionality is complete. Um, let's make some updates to the UI now. Give me a sec. Okay. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to make some changes to the UI. We want to update the styling for the audio controls, right? They are not appearing properly. Let's fix that. So this is the section for the audio, and let's add a padding over here of 4. Okay, and let's get rid of this. So all of the items are now equally spaced. Then what we want to do is we are seeing this, right? This broken image. Let's take care of that. So let's give this an ID. And what we want to do over here is we'll call this section as the song info section. And by default, it is invisible. Okay. Only once we start playing, playing the song, right? That is the time when we make it visible. All right. So let's get this element song info, and let's go inside, load playlist tracks. And when we are actually playing the uh, when we are actually playing the track, which is over here, so we'll say const uh, song info equals document dot query selector. We'll get the song info. Okay, we'll get that element. And once we have set everything, all the URLs and everything, we will say song info dot class list dot remove. We want to remove the invisible class. Okay. All right. So now I'm clicking on play, and then the image starts to appear. All right. Now let's fix the sizing for all the controls. Okay. All right. So when we are hovering over each of these, we want that uh, the text primary color should appear, right? So by default, they grayed out when we are hovering on this. It's getting that white color. So we want this functionality for all of these elements. Okay. All right. So this is working fine. And instead of having a size of um, the size of 36, right? What we will do is we will reduce the size slightly, and here we will say that instead of 48, we will give it the size 36. And actually let's make this as 40, and let's make all of these to 36. All right. And there seems to be a certain amount of a there seems to be some extra padding over here. Let's get rid of this, and let's add a class over here. We'll make these small, and similarly for this element also, let's give it the class text sm. Okay. All right, just give me a sec. I need to just quickly check why are we having. Okay, I guess because it's, I have zoomed this for you guys. It was appearing quite large, but otherwise it seems to be fine. Okay, so the styling for this has been taken care of. Now what we want to do is after this we want to work on this functionality, right? The songs which are appearing over here. So let's take care of this functionality. So inside the header, right? Let's go to our header element, which is this one. No, not this one, sorry. The main header, which is this. So this has this background transparent and all of these classes. So the way this works is it is sticky by default, and we'll set this to top 0, and we'll give this a bg black background, and we'll give this the opacity of 0. Okay, so initially it is, transparent like this, and as we scroll we will you know we will increase the background opacity. Okay, and for the button as well, let's make a slight change. Let's give this bg black, and so it has this black background by default, and we will get rid of this you know so let's change this to 6. All right, so this appears much better compared to before. And what we want to do over here is we want to update the styling for the content cover as well. We want to say that this has a padding top of 16, and we want to give this particular element a specific column width. So let's make it 250 pixels, and for the rows, okay, auto rows, let's make that as 250 pixels also. And for the image, what we will do is so the image we are generating programmatically, right? And for this we have the let's give a margin top of 64. Okay, you guys are not able to see the thing that I'm working on. All right, we'll get I'll do that in just a bit. Okay, so this is the the change which I made. Okay, so this user profile section now has a black background, and we have kept this. We have given the header a black color, but we have kept its opacity to 0, so it is basically acting as a transparent header. And as we scroll we will increase its opacity uh, so that we have a similar effect like we have over here, right? When you're on the home screen and as you're scrolling, it is becoming, this header is becoming dark. So that is the effect that we are after right now. So those are the changes that we are trying to do over here. So as we scroll, this should become, it should lose its transparency and become uh, opaque. All right. Okay, so let me put this back. And let's modify the function which was responsible for this. So on content scroll, so we have the header element, and let's get the uh, cover element as well. So let's calculate the total height. So const total height equals cover element dot offset height. uh, so this will give us the total height. Then to calculate the opacity for the cover, right? So cover opacity. So what we're trying to do is, if we go inside a particular playlist, right? So this kind of, this becomes transparent, and the header becomes, what do you say, more and more visible. Okay, so that's the functionality that we're trying to achieve. So cover opacity equals document, sorry, what we want to do is we want to get the, we will do 100, and from this we will subtract the scroll top. Okay, and what we will check over here is that whether the scroll top is greater than the total height, and if it is, then we will just return the value as 100. That means we have, scrolled beyond this element, and that means in that case it needs to be completely transparent. This, this section which is being used to show the image, it needs to be completely transparent. Otherwise what we will do is we will get the percentage of, how much we have scrolled out of 100, how much percentage have we scrolled. Okay, so we will do scroll top divided by the total height, and we will multiply that by 100. Okay, so that should give us the percentage of how much we have scrolled, right? And what we want to do is we want to subtract from 100, we want to subtract whatever this value is, because opacity 0 means it was completely transparent, right? It will not be visible, and that is what we want to do. As we are scrolling down, this should become invisible. This particular area should become invisible. Okay, all right, and let's calculate the header opacity as well. So for that we will check if the scroll top is greater than equal to the header dot offset height. If it has gone beyond that, that means the opacity is 100%. It should be completely visible. If we have, you know scrolled beyond this header area, all right. So this is the area for the header, right? Once we have scrolled completely beyond this, we want that this header increase its opacity. Otherwise what we will do is we will divide scroll top by the header dot offset height, and we will multiply this value by 100 to get the percentage of how much we have scrolled, how much height of the header we have scrolled. Okay, then what we want to do is we will say cover element dot style dot opacity, and we'll use the cover opacity value, and let's just add a percentage sign besides it. And similarly, for the header, right? So we are saying header dot style dot background equals, we'll use the RGBA values. So RGBA will pass 0, 0, 0, and 0 for black, and initially and we'll set control its opacity based on the amount which is being scrolled. So we'll pass the header opacity over here, and we'll append this with the percentage sign. Okay, then the next thing that we want to do is that, so none of this is of any use to us, so we'll get rid of this because by default we have made it sticky and given all of these background colors, so we don't need this. And for this particular part we will check, and here instead of checking the height and width, we will check how much of the cover opacity, how much visible is the cover element, how opaque is it. So if the transparency is somewhere less than equal to 35, right, the value which we have calculated over here, what we will do is we will get the playlist header, and so this part remains the same, right, and its top will also remain the same. So all of this functionality remains as it is. Okay, and let's just check if this functionality is working as expected. So an hour has passed. Let's agree. So we have these songs, right? So you can see as I am scrolling down, right, the header is becoming, initially it is slightly transparent, it is becoming more and more opaque, and as we're scrolling, this image is becoming less and less opaque. This is kind of fading out, and then this title section is sticking. Let's fix the style for this as well. So let's search for the playlist header. Let's get rid of this padding. And we're having some extra space over here as well. Let's check what we need to do here. Let's go to the dashboard. So we have the cover content. Let's change its height to 80. And now you can see they're kind of merged, and as we're scrolling this is becoming more and more this is becoming from transparent to opaque, and this is fading, right? And let me just zoom out for a sec, and then the header starts to stick. All right, so for that particular effect, uh, yeah, so this is, I mean, there's a question as to in Spotify it happens like this, here it is changing a bit differently. Well, uh, because of the zoom and all of those things, I'm zooming and all of those things, it's not, the effect is not exactly the same, but I wanted to show you the approach of how that thing is happening, right? So we are trying to target that functionality and show you the approach for it. It's not 100% matching the approach which is there on the original Spotify, but this is a clone, right? So it does will not match everything 100%, but I wanted to show you the approach as to how it can be achieved. Okay. All right. So this particular part is, done at some level. Next, what we want to do is, uh, when we go back to the dashboard, right? Right now we have hard coded this playlist section, right? So let's add the code so that we can go back to the dashboard and select all the playlists. So let me uncomment this, comment this, and comment this, and uncomment this one. So we are back to seeing all of the you know playlists. Suppose we select a particular track, it starts playing, we can go back and still you can see the song is being played. We click on next, it's picking the next song from the currently selected playlist. So this functionality is working out well, and the song starts playing, we're able to pause it, and all of this is working well. Now you can see that it's still showing today's top hits and all of that information. So when we are on the dashboard, we want to show some different text over here, and you can see that the header is fading and becoming uh, opaque as we scroll. So the functionality is pretty much similar. So if you notice, when you hover over here to any of these tracks, that is when the color of this thing changes. Suppose I go to this thing, and if I scroll, you can see by default functionality it is that it goes from gray and then it becomes opaque as we are scrolling. So that was the functionality that we were trying to target over here. Okay, and let's take care of this part now. So for that, uh, we have the cover content, right? So when we are on the dashboard and we are trying to fill the content for dashboard, let's get the cover content. So cover content equals document dot query selector cover content, and we will say that cover content dot inner html equals dollar. So we'll use the h1 tag over here, and we'll say class text 6xl, and you'll say hello. So let's just check if this part is working now. Okay, so we are seeing hello comma whatever, and instead of just showing hello, we want to display the user's name, right? You can show any other greeting over here, figure out what time of the day it is. You can show good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. So that logic you can figure out. I'll just try and show the display name over here. So for that, what we will do is when we are loading the user's profile, which is here, we'll return a new promise over here, and this will get a resolve and a reject callback. And here what we want to do is We want to say resolve. Let's move all of this functionality inside this. Okay. Once we have the once we have set this to the element, let's resolve the display name. All right. And let's create a variable called let display name like this. Okay. And afterwards, what we want to do is when we have the information available with us, and we are saying fill the dashboard over here, we'll use the variable display name, and we're calling this from the load section function. So let's wait for the let's wait for this function. So since this is asynchronous, we need to add that keyword over here. And so another thing that we will return is, let's return the display name from here. Okay, like this. And what we will do is we want to reuse the existing variable, right? So we will say display name equals this thing. Since we want to reuse this, we'll wrap all of this inside a parentheses. So it will, destructure the value and assign it to this variable, and this will be set, and then rest of the functionality will happen. So let's check if this is working. So we are able to see the currently logged in user's name, right? And the so this functionality is working pretty well right now. And if we go inside a particular playlist, oh, hang on a sec, what happened? Okay, so there was some issue with the API. It's working now, and we can see the song as well as the name of the uh, album. And if we go back, we can see this as well. Okay, so it's updating the cover content appropriately. Now let's work on the side navigation functionality, and let's wrap up this clone. Okay, let's go to the HTML. So we have this aside for the side nav. All right, so we'll add a nav element over here. And within this, what we want to do is let's create a section, and here we will have the image. Let's create a new folder called assets. And I think we had this image for login. Let's move this over here, and let's update this so that it picks up that image from the assets. So dot slash assets slash image black, and we'll add the rest of the images over here as well. Let's go to the downloads folder and search for the Spotify clone icons. So we want this white icon, so let me move this here. Okay, actually we need the green icon, and we need the logo which is white in color, so this one. All right, so we have all of the assets in place, and let's go to our login page. We'll make a small change over here. We want to show the if you notice, the original Spotify app has this Spotify logo and ours doesn't. Let's add that as well. So we will say link. Okay, fav icon. Instead of this, we will pass the path. So dot slash, sorry, where are we? Inside login, right? So dot slash assets slash RGB green. This is the one that we are interested in. Let's copy this and use this inside the HTML file as well. Okay, so you can see that we can see the Spotify fav icon now. All right, and let's get back to the side navigation. So here we want to show the image, so it is coming from the asset. So dot slash um, assets slash logo RGB white. So we have this Spotify logo coming over here. Okay, then we have another section. uh, Inside this, let's add a unordered list, and let's add some list items. So let's we'll show the home as well as the what do you say, the search button over here. We'll make use of the font icons, and let's style this a bit now. So we'll say class flex column. Okay, we'll say item start. We'll give a gap of 8 and a padding of 8 in the vertical direction and a padding of 4 in the horizontal direction. So this is appearing like this. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to wrap this inside an anchor tag. So we will say a link, and we will just navigate back to the base path. Okay, so for example, we are inside our playlist, right? So this playlist basically doesn't have any songs. Let's go to this one, and I click on this, right? So it should take me back to the dashboard. Okay, all right. So this is for that. And let's style this image as well. So we'll say class, we'll give it a height of 10. We will say that it's taking up the full width which is available, and we'll use the object contain so that it doesn't overflow. All right, the other thing that we want to do is we will I think this is good enough. Let's give it an alternate value, Spotify logo. All right, so this section is done. Now let's work on this one. So here what we want to do is let's style this. We will use flex column, and we'll use a gap of 4. Okay, and we'll say this is text small, and all of this has the secondary color because it is appearing, it's a bit grayed out. Now here what we want to do is we want to use those material icons. So what we will say is we will have a span. We will have the class material symbols hyphen outlined, and for this we will use the home. So you can see this home icon is appearing, and besides this we want the let's let's add another span here, and let's show the text home. Okay, and similarly let's copy this structure, paste this here, and here we will say search, and we will show the text search like this. And um, the other thing that we want to do is let's use flex over here, class flex, and we want to say items in the center, and we want to give a gap of 2, right? And when we hover over this, we want the text primary class to be applied. So you can see when I'm hovering over this, and what we want to say is by default the cursor is pointer, so cursor pointer. Okay, all right, now let's apply the same styling to the search element as well. Sorry. Okay, so this is coming, and you can add more of these over here. So we have your library and whatnot, so you can add more of these. uh, this part is just for display purpose. You guys can add more functionality on your own. And then let's add another section where we will be showing the users playlist. Okay, if the user has created their own playlist, we can basically show those over here. So let's give this an ID. Okay, user playlists, and let's give a class width is full. We just want to give a border at the top, and we want to use the secondary color secondary like this, and let's give a padding from the top of 4. Then within this, what we want to do is we want to create a UL, and we want to show some LIs over here. So for example, playlist 1, and let's add a class uh, here. Let's use flex column, and let's give a gap of 4. Let's give the font size as text small, and let's give it the text secondary color like this. So this is how the users playlist will appear. We have this distinction similar to how we have over here, right? And instead of text secondary, let's use sorry, not here, here we will use light black. Okay, all right, now this is the part that which we will generate dynamically. So let's create an endpoint for that. Let's go to our APIs common, and let's create one for user. playlist. So here it says me slash playlist. I think this is the URL. Let me just cross check. Okay, me slash playlist. So we have an entry for that. And what we want to do is we want to get the user's playlist from this API. So here, let's call that function. Let's create a function const load user playlists equals. We will call the function fetch request, give it the endpoint which we have created, user playlist, and so let's take this in a variable playlists equals this thing. We need to wait for this and add the async keyword since this is an asynchronous operation. The next thing that we want to do is let's log this, okay, and see if we are getting the playlists. And we want to call this function once we have the user's profile. So load playlist, load user play, wait, okay. So we are getting two items. So in my account, I have these two playlists, right? Playlist number 2 and 1. And when I click on this, I am seeing this particular playlist. This is the one song which has been added. So we're trying to go after the same functionality. Uh, all right. So this is working fine. Next thing what we want to do is let's get that element user playlist section equals document dot query selector. We want to get the element which has the ID user playlists, and we want to target the unordered list within it. Okay, then you want to say user playlist section dot inner HTML that is equal to blank, and then we want to create, what we want to do is we want to loop through all the items in the playlist. So let name comma id of playlists dot items. We want to create a list element, so we'll say document dot create element. We want to create a li, and li dot text content equals the name of the playlist, and li dot class name equals cursor pointer, and on hover we want the text to have the primary color which is white. And when we click on this, so we want to add an event listener. We want to listen to the click event. When that happens, we want to say that we want to handle this, and we want to load that particular playlist. So const load on user playlist click, equals, we're getting the ID of the playlist. All right, and what we want to do is we want to create a section type, section type dot playlist, and the playlist is the one which we are getting as part of the ID. Okay, and after that we want to do history dot push state. We want to push this section, and this is empty. And for the last part we want to say that we want to load it in the dashboard, and we want to go to the playlist, and we want to show the ID in the URL. Okay, so let's use the backtick notation, and we'll pass the ID over here, and then we'll call the load section function and pass it the section that we are getting. All right, let's pass this over here on user playlist click, and we'll just pass it the ID when we're clicking on this. Okay, hmm. So we are not getting anything. What is the issue? Let me just check what was the name of the element. Let's check and debug. So dashboard.js, we want to go on the playlist, sorry, user playlist click, not this, yeah, this function. Okay, let's do a refresh. So we are getting this element over here. We're setting its, oh wait, we forgot to do the main thing. We need to append this, right? So we want to say user playlist section dot append child. We want to append these li's when we are done with this, right? Okay, so this should do the trick. So you can see we have access to my playlist number 2 and my playlist 1 as we have on the original one. And let's make this, let's give this text sm class. Wait, we already have done that. And the cursor needs to be pointer. Let me just check. Why are we not getting the, okay, I don't know, for some reason it was not showing. All right, so now when I click on this playlist, it is showing me that particular playlist. Okay, and if I go back to this one, it is showing me all of the tracks in that playlist. Okay, so both of these functionalities are working, and when we click on home, it is taking us here. Okay, so let's add a little bit, a another small change over here. Once we are inside the header, where are we showing the menu items? So let's show some more menu items. Um, okay, let's duplicate this. Let's get rid of this. And instead of one, let's use two. And instead of showing logout, we will say over here accounts, uh, profile, settings, and finally logout. And let's get rid of these for these three elements. Okay, so you can add more functionality to these. Let's click on logout. So we have been logged out, and if we logged in, if we click on agree, we are logged in. Okay, so this is how our clone is looking right now. Okay, and let's select a particular playlist from here. We are seeing all the songs. You can play any song. You can go back to the dashboard. The song is still playing. You can browse all of the other playlists. You can change the song. So all of this functionality is working uh, properly. And then we have the section for the profile. And so I guess we are done with this. I want you guys to work more on this, add more functionality. It's a good project for your portfolio. And we have achieved quite a lot of functionality with this. We are getting all of these playlists from the Spotify API. We learned what an access token is. We also learned how to use Tailwind, and we also figured out how to make use of it. We're using environment variables. We added this fav icon. So this is as good as a clone gets, and we're just using vanilla JavaScript to achieve this, and we are not using any framework. But as you can see, it was quite a challenge, to have all of this code, right? And it's quite, difficult to, maintain this code. And this is where frameworks like React or Angular or Vue help us. They allow us to, you know, uh, handle a lot of functionality by writing less code, because the framework or the library is taking care of that. And we can divide and structure our code into components, which make it easier for us to reuse them and maintain the readability of the code. Okay, and the next thing that we want to do is we'll take a short break over here, and then we will move on to the React session. All right. Yes, this can be hosted on Netlify. Um, I'll be sharing the entire link, and I'll be making some changes. I'll be pushing the changes to the GitHub repository. Once we have a doubt session, I'll cover that part as to how you can deploy the website. But I'll be making some changes inside the Vite config for the production mode. So I'll not cover those things right now. Maybe in one of the later sessions, I'll go through that. But right now, I would like to move on to React. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll start working on React. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this clone, and I'm looking forward to seeing the clones that you guys build. I hope you add more functionality to this. Take it ahead. Whatever are the missing things you build you use this particular build and build on top of it. Okay. All right. So let's break here and we'll start in 5 minutes. All right, you guys are pretty excited for this. Uh, waiting, you guys have been waiting for quite some time, right? I'll minimize this and let me open a new instance of VS Code. I'll set the things up. Hang on. So new, let's go to documents, Devsnest, streams. Let's create a new folder, React intro day, rather day 22, React intro. All right. Let me set up some files, index.html, and so there's a question about a certificate. I think once you complete the DevNest bootcamp, you will be getting a certificate. And the bootcamp has all of these uh, topics, right? So, all right. So we have this index file. Goodbye, Spotify. Okay. Yeah, I'll make the code available on GitHub and it'll be shared with you guys. Don't worry. Okay. So we have this document. All right. React intro. So all of us know that how we can create a element using JavaScript, right? Let's quickly do a quick revision of that. In case some of you are just joining today, So we have, let's add a script tag, text, javascript. Okay. And let's create a element over here. So we have a div. Let's give this an id root. Okay. And we will say over here const root equals document dot. Actually, let's not even create this. Let's see how to create an element using JavaScript. So we have document dot create element. We create a div, and then we say that root dot id equals root, for example. Okay. And actually, let's call this as element. I know you guys might be wondering, what is he doing? Is he not teaching React? I'll be getting to that. I just want to show the resemblance between the two. Okay. Okay. Then so we have this element, right? And we want to say element dot class name. Suppose we want to give this the class name container. And we want to say element dot text content equals hello students. Okay. And then we will just do document dot body dot append child, and we will give it the element which we have created. Okay, let's go live. Okay, let me. So we have the text react intro. And then we have the element. Give me a sec. Yeah, this needs to be JavaScript. Hang on a sec. Let's create that actually. Div, let's give it id root, and let's create another. You will say document dot create element, and we have a root element. So root equals document dot get element by id, and the id is root. All right, and then what we want to do is, let's just say this is the root. All right, let's create a span, and we have added the text content. Then we'll say root dot append child. We give it this element. So this is how you create an element. Wait a sec, what is going on? Okay, let's get rid of this. All right. So I guess because of the live server, we were not able to get that working. Okay, so this is something that you guys might be familiar with, and if you're not, you have seen it here now, that we have this element. We got the element by its ID, we created an element span, and then we gave it a class name container, which you can see over here, and this was the text, and then we appended this element to uh, this element, right? And what happened is, now if we want to do the same thing in React, let's take a look at how we can achieve the same thing using React. So what I'm going to do is I'll be using a special package. Okay, I'll be adding this script over here. All right, from unpackage. So there's this website unpkg.com. You can get different node modules. You can get the node modules of any particular package from here directly. You can get the particular JavaScript file. So I have already gone ahead and taken up a particular version of React 16.7. Don't worry, I just want to demonstrate something, and then going ahead we'll be using the latest version of React. Okay, and similarly, so I've added the React library. Okay, and similarly what I want to do is I want to add the library for React DOM. Okay, which is this one. So I am loading both of those scripts externally. Now let's take a look at how we can do the same thing using React. Okay, so I'll just comment this code out, and here what we will do is you will say const root equals, so this part is same, we'll get the root element by its ID, and we have the other element. We will say react dot create element. Now this API is available from this React package. Okay, and we will say that we want to create a div, right? And let's pass it some property. So for example, class name. The class name, we want to give the class name as container, and we want to specify some children over here. So either you can give the children over here like this, okay, as part of the props. So I want to say hello students. Okay, so we created an element using React API, and we want to render this, right? So in order to render it, we will say React DOM. Now this is made available through this library React DOM, and we will say React DOM dot render. We want to render the element which we just created, and we want to render this inside the root element. Okay, and let me keep this commented and save this. So now it is blank, and let me uncomment this piece of code, and now when we save this, you can see that we have the same text as before, but the difference is that we have created this element using React. Okay, so this part is pretty similar to how you create an element in JavaScript. Okay, all right, now this is kind of a tedious way of uh, doing this. Okay, and we have this third property available to us. You can pass the children directly over here instead of passing it from here like this. Suppose you want to you know um, show the same text. So here you can pass an array hello students like this. So even this is doing the same thing. So either you can pass the children as part of the properties, or you can pass it over here as an array. So let's take a look at this hello students, what's up. Okay, so it is basically doing that over here. If we inspect this, you can see it is that same tag which we had created earlier. We're using a span, so let's use a span over here. Okay, hello students, what's up. All right, so it's adding all of those as the children inside this span. Okay, so instead of specifying the text content, we are using this. Now suppose what you want to do is you want to show this inside a span. Okay, so we will say react dot create element. We want to create a span. Let's specify its properties. So we will say children, and we will say what's up. Okay, like this. And you can see that within our main span we have this text hello students, and then we have another span which has this text what's up. But generally we are used to writing something like this, right? We have our div, and within that we have a span, and then we have another span, right? This is the thing that we're used to doing, when we write HTML. Is it possible to do something like this using React? And it is possible, because if we go on creating, something like a Spotify clone, and if we follow this kind of an approach, it will take us ages. Okay, but I just wanted to show you the basics as to what things are available. So you can see that whatever class name we were passing, it is being available as the class, right? And just like how we have this class name property, we have the class name property over here as well. And you want to create nested elements, this is how you can do that. Now let's take a look at something known as JSX. So JSX is known as JavaScript extended. It allows us to extend the it allows us to write HTML kind of syntax within JavaScript. Okay, so to enable that, we can make use of another package known as Babel. Let me add the script for that. All right, so we have added Babel over here, which is basically a transpiler, and it understands, and I'm using a standalone version of Babel over here. So what it does is that it scans through your script which have a specific type. So in this case, I need to specify the type as text slash Babel. When this package comes across this script which has this type text slash Babel, it allows us to use JSX. Now let's take a look at how we can do that. So we want to create the same thing, right? So let me comment this piece of code. Okay, so we have the root element. Then in order to create the element how we are used to doing it, we will say div. Okay, and we will specify the closing div, and we will say class name. Since we are in React, if you remember, we cannot use the class keyword from directly, right? So whatever we were passing as properties or the props object, we can pass that as an attribute over here. Okay. And we want to give the class name as container. And the reason why we can't use the keyword class, that is because class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript, right? That is why we, instead of having the class attribute directly available, uh, we use the class name instead. Okay. And another difference is, in terms of HTML we call this as an attribute, but in the React world we call this as a prop, as a property. Okay, as a property of this element. Okay. And we want to show the text over here, hello students. Okay. And within this, what we want to say, we want to add a span over here, and we want to say what's up. Okay, something like this. And then the rest of the thing remains same. So you can see that we did not use react.create element and all of that. Instead we use the JSX, which allows us to write you know HTML kind of a syntax within, right within JavaScript. Okay, so this is JavaScript land, and let's take a look at the difference. So here we have our script, text slash babel, and additionally, if we come over here, where is it? Yeah, if we come to the head, you can see that we have another script over here. So when babel goes across the script, which has the type text slash babel, what it will do is, it will, behind the scenes, it will try and convert it into the syntax that we were doing earlier. So it's doing the same thing over here. We have the code, right? Get element by id. Then instead, when it came across this line, div class name container and so and so, behind the scenes it did the same thing. React dot create element div, it passed it this prop, you know class name container. Then it create, and then it set the children to hello students. Then it created another, uh, then we passed it another children, and it did react dot create element when it came across this span. And you can see it's setting the text what's up to it, and we are just rendering this to this element, right? So JSX, behind the scenes, it is doing the same thing that we were doing earlier. Okay. But in terms of developer experience, it enhances the developer experience. It is much easier to write or create elements in React using this approach. All right. And for that purpose, we use Babel. Whenever you have any issues, you can go to the Babel uh, website, babeljs.io. There is a section for try it out, and you can see that we have this greeting over here, hello students. uh, Whatever, you can write your JSX over here. Okay, so let me zoom this. So for example, we have this variable greeting, and then we have this additional greeting what's up, and then we have this element, right? We are just uh, creating a div and passing these two values over here, and it is let me just paste this particular piece of code and see what is the result. Okay, I'll comment this out and paste this code, and you can see it's doing the same thing. So whenever you have any difficulty you know understanding how JSX is working, okay, you can visit this website and you can play around with this. So it will show you how a particular element is rendered actually behind the scenes. Okay. And don't worry, the person in the chat, whether anyone is there or not, you are here, right? And you're watching this video. So pay attention to what I am teaching you. Don't worry about others, okay? All right. The next thing that we want to look at is something known as interpolation. So what we will do here is instead of using these hard coded values, right? Suppose we have this variable const greeting equals hello students. Okay. Now if I want to use this value within my JSX, I can use this variable like this and pass it around and wrap this variable with curly brackets. Now this is known as interpolation. Okay. Using this, we can pass variables, we can uh, you know specify functions and all of those. So what this is doing is basically whenever we use this, right, we can add expressions over here. So for example, we can have conditions over here. All right, suppose I want to check. So right now it is let me get rid of this. Okay. So this greeting is being shown. It's coming from this text. If I make any changes to this variable, it is updated, right? Like this. And suppose I want to add some logic. Okay. If the greeting is there, I show the greeting as it is. Otherwise, I will just say hello. Okay. And suppose I clear this variable. Okay. So now this piece of this you know piece of code is allowing us to add an expression over here, and we're checking whether greeting is defined. If it is defined, we use its value, otherwise we show this default text. Okay. uh, Actually we can do something like this. So this is not working, right? It's because it only supports expressions. All right. So what this indicates is whenever we write a curly bracket, it allows us to execute JavaScript. Okay. So we can write conditions, we can pass a function over here. Uh, so there are some limitations. We can just, uh, have expressions over here. We cannot have statements. Okay. And the difference, so what you can remember is an easy way to remember this is you cannot have something like this: greeting equals test. Okay. So even though you're doing something like this and then use greeting over here, you can see this is having no effect because this is an assignment. This will not work over here directly. So it is basically expecting some end result. Okay. uh, or either a true false value, or some sort of an expression, some sort of uh, some value using which it can show something. So by default only expressions work over here. So we'll just show this for now. And in case it is not clear, as we work more and more with React, you will understand what works and what doesn't work within the curly brackets. Okay. All right. Now, suppose we want to do something like this, which is pretty common. Okay. What I want to do is I want to say span greeting slash span, and I have another span with the text what's up. Okay, something like this. Now if you notice over here, it's giving me an error. JSX expressions must have one parent. So another thing that you need to remember about JSX is that it is let's take a look at what it is doing in terms of Babel. Let's paste this code over here. And it is telling that adjacent elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. So what you need to remember in React is that whenever you are having a JSX, internally it is creating an object, right? If you remember, this element is something like this. It is passing this object, and this create element is returning a this create element is returning a single object, right? So can you return multiple, can you have multiple return statements, or can a function at the same time return two values? That is not possible, right? So that is why whenever we have a scenario like this, we need to wrap this inside a special element known as react dot fragment. Okay. And if we go back to our VS code, you can see that it is there. If we inspect this, you can see that we are inside the div and there is no element you know coming corresponding to this fragment. Okay, but since behind the scenes it is, let's paste this over here in the Babel compiler. So behind the scenes it is doing this, right? React dot create element, and it used the React fragment, and within that it is creating two elements, the span with the greeting, and then the span which has the text what's up. Okay, and you can see how it is interpolating the value as well. So we gave it this greeting variable, and whatever is the value of greeting, it is passing as children over here. Okay, so that is how interpolation is working. And you can see this element is finally getting one single object, right? So if we do not specify this, we will be getting two different objects, which is not possible because a function cannot return two values at the same time, right? So that is why, since this is a very common use case in HTML, we have a special element known as react.fragment to, you know, take care of this scenario. When this is actually rendered in HTML, this element gets removed and we just see the two spans. Okay. And since this is very common, there's a shortcut for this available in React. So you can get rid of this and you just have these empty angle brackets, and still the functionality is working how it was working before. Okay. All right. So this is known as a fragment. All right. So we have taken a look at how you can interpolate values and what is a fragment. A fragment allows us to, render two elements side by side, and it, takes care of the these scenarios where such functionality is required. Now, suppose what I want to do is I want to, you know, display an alert when this happens, right? When I click on this, so we have this on click. Now we can access events like this, and since we want JavaScript to be executed, we can do something like const on click, okay, equals alert span clicked, for example, and we pass this function reference over here like this. Okay, let me rename this to on click of span, something like this, so that you guys are not confused between the name of the prop and the function that we are passing. Now when I click on this, you can see we are getting this alert span clicked. Okay, so this is how you can add different you can listen to different events and handle them. Okay, right? So this is since we want JavaScript to be executed when for this event, right? We use the curly bracket. So whenever you want JavaScript to be executed, you make use of this curly bracket syntax. All right. Okay. Aryan, I don't know. I'm not familiar with Android, the recent version, so I don't know if it's the same thing or not. So we are just talking strictly in terms of React. This is what it is called, and this is the syntax for it. All right. So this is how you can listen to different events and handle them. Okay. Now let's take a look at another functionality. Okay. Now let's comment this out. Now suppose what I want to do is I want to display, multiple of these greetings. So in order to do that, what I will do is let me create a let's copy this. Let's uncomment this. And suppose what I want to do here is I want to, display this itself as a span slash span. Okay. And we have this, suppose we want to show some message. So const message equals hello. And we looked at the interpolation, right? And message we pass over here. And then basically we will say const element equals suppose I want multiple of these, right? So I'll use the fragment and the closing fragment, and here I will have greeting like this. Since this is a variable and I want to use its value, so I will do something like this, and you can see we have hello over here. I want to have multiple of these, for example. So I'll just duplicate this and I have another hello. But what I want to do is I want to change the text for this, right? So what I will do is I will convert this into a function. Okay. And this function will get something known as props, and we will say props dot message like this. Okay. And here, as I am, I want different, I want to pass different values to this, so I'll use this as a function. So greeting, and then over here I will pass this object message. So here I want to pass the text hello, and here I want to show the text, you know message students like this. And you can see that uh, we are able to reuse this function. Okay. This is a function reference. We are passing it something known as props, and then we are just saying props dot message. All right. And similarly, if I want to add another, you know greeting over here, like what's up. Okay. So you can see that using this approach, I am able to dynamically, change the greeting that I want to display. Now in React, instead of calling a function like this, since we're using JSX, we have the provision of using something like this. Let's We have something known as a component. And the way you know, use a component is like this. Instead of calling a function directly, we can say we can use a component. So the name of the component, it always begins with a capital letter. So we have greeting. Now we know that in React, whatever you're passing as an attribute, that is known as a prop. So we will say this is the message. The message equals hello. Okay. And since we're using React, you need not necessarily have a closing tag. You can have just a slash like this. So instead of calling a function like this, you can also call a function which is known as a component in React like this. Okay. And let's save this. So you can see that hang on a sec. What is the exception that we're getting? Greeting is not defined. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Wait a sec. What am I missing? Okay, give me a sec. So for now, let's just call this as a function greeting, and here we'll just say this. This function returns something like this, and to call the function, still giving us greeting not defined. Hang on a sec. What am I doing wrong? Let's check this in the compiler. So here it seems to be working. There is no error. Okay. Hmm. This is on. It works here, but it's not working here. Um. All right, just give me a sec. Let me just cross verify if I'm making any particular mistake. So suppose function greeting. Ideally, it should have worked, but I'm not sure as to why it didn't work. Empty cache and hard reload. Okay, let me try this in another place. Hang on a sec. I'm just cross checking something if I have made a mistake over here. All right. Let's just capitalize this. Okay, and let's get rid of this. Okay, so that was the mistake that I was making. So in React, the naming convention that we follow is that the name of the component should be capitalized. Okay, and so earlier we were doing something like this. Let me put this back. And here greeting like this, and here also greeting like this. So you can see that it is not understanding this because it needs to be capitalized. So what we will do is we will just capitalize this one. And in order to use, a functional component, the naming convention is that it's always starts with a capital letter, so that there's a distinction between a React component and a regular, something like, suppose you're creating a component, a function which is called div. Okay, and we have something like a div over here as well, within HTML, so that there isn't a confusion between the two. The naming convention which is followed in React is that the components names always begin with an uppercase letter. Okay, all right, so we have hello students, what's up? So instead of calling a function like this, we can use this kind of a syntax. What we were passing as properties, we can directly define them over here on this component. Similarly, we can get rid of this and use an angle bracket, and either you can do something like slash greeting, but it's not necessary because you can use this syntax because this is a React component. You do not have to explicitly close it, but there are certain scenarios where you have to do it like this. We'll cover those as we move ahead. And here we will say message equals students, like this, and even this is working. And similarly, we'll change this one as well, so closing, and this is available, all right, as a prop. And if we change something over here, since it is the time for firecrackers, we are using that. So you can see that this is how you create a component, and that component receives a special object known as props, which is nothing but all the properties that you're passing over here. They are available as keys. Suppose I have another, uh, you know, I want to do that same functionality of clicking. So I will say on click equals, where was that function which we had written for click? Did I guess I removed it. So let's recreate that. So const handle click. Okay, and we will just say alert um, element clicked, like this. Okay, and here we will pass the reference of handle click, and we want to say on click, like this. And when we click on hello, equals props dot on click. Okay, now when we click on hello, you can see this alert. Another thing that you can do is we can destructure it over here like this, and we can say on click and uh, message, like this. And instead of using the keyword props, we can directly say message, like this, and it is still working. And suppose you know that the name of the properties and the things that you want to pass over here, both of them are same, right? So let's suppose instead of using a paragraph, we are using a title. And let's pass props over here. We're getting the props. And here what we can do is we'll just spread the props over here like this. Okay. And here we will say props dot message, hello students, what's up. And now we're using a paragraph, that is why they're coming one line after the other. When we click on this, it is showing element click. When we click on this, nothing happens, right? So you can use the spread operator as well. It will automatically assign those, matching property names to this element. So for example, we pass a title over here. Okay, title equals, this will be shown on hovering. Okay, so when we hover over this element, you can see that this title property is visible, right? So automatically it is mapping that property. When we use the spread syntax, React is smart enough to understand that we're assigning the key values as it is. So this is another way by which you can assign properties to an element using the spread operator, or you can destructure them over here and assign the individual properties. All right. So this was an intro to React. In the next lesson, we look at more things, how to structure a React application, uh, and we'll build probably some small app and understand additional functionality which is available in React. This was just an intro. So I showed you how you create an element using JavaScript, then how you create an element in React. Then we looked at what is JSX, how does it work, what is interpolation, how do we add events, what is a functional component. Okay, there is the earlier versions of React were using a class based component, but the recent versions recommend that we use a function based component, right? And the advantage of this is that we were able to reuse this functionality, right? We wanted to pass different messages over here for the greeting, and we were able to achieve that very easily because we are using a component, and we just added that component and changed the message. So this is a advantage of using React, that it allows us to segregate our code into components, and which allows us to reuse elements, right? And yeah, so that is it for this session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you're new to Devsnest, you can read about Devsnest in the details and or the description of this video. I'll see you guys on uh, Tuesday, because Monday is a holiday. We have a festival over here. We are celebrating Diwali. So Monday will be off, and I'll see you guys directly on Tuesday. Okay. So till then, take care. Happy Diwali and enjoy the festivities. I'll see you in the next session, and we'll learn more about React and build more interesting apps using it. Take care. Bye bye.